When I was 12 years old, my parents made the decision to get a divorce following several years of being unhappy together, mainly due to my father's work forcing him to spend a lot of time away from home, which caused them to drift apart. While this in and of itself was quite difficult for me to handle at that age, it was my mother's subsequent partner that proved to be my real challenge, since he ended up being an incredibly abusive individual that would spend every waking hour making our life miserable, which truly sent me spiraling down a dark hole of fear and depression. Following 5 long years of verbal and, at times, physical abuse, I eventually decided to stand up for me and my mother against him, but my mother decided to choose him over me and, at 18 years old, I found myself without a home. Thankfully, my father had settled back to our city around the same time I was kicked out of my childhood house, so I was able to stay with him in the apartment he was renting, even though our relationship had been somewhat strained for some time now. I wish I could tell you that I quickly got up on my feet, dusted myself off, and seized the day while quickly managing to overcome the darkness in my head, but unfortunately, that's not how things happened. I spent the next 14 years in constant struggle against my inner demons, who did everything within their power to isolate me from everyone and keep me in a never-ending loop of self-pity, bouts of depression and anger, as well as extended time frames of sorrow and the sense of simply being not enough, especially given my mother's choice of her new husband over her own son. That's not to say that I wasn't improving over time. I gradually started doing my best to push back against these waves of misery, and eventually, I became better at keeping them at bay about half the time, though it always felt like an uphill battle that I would have to engage in my whole life just to have a basic sense of balance. Going to college did help a lot, since it allowed me to build up my self-confidence by achieving good grades and exposed me to the academic world, which played a fundamental part on my pursuit of a writing career later on, but overall, I never managed to completely shed the feeling of hopelessness that had been plaguing me for many years by that point. Needless to say, as much as I was trying to see the glass half full, it seemed as if I was doomed to a life where I had to be on perpetual lookout for the negative emotions I knew were lurking in the darkest recesses of my mind, which wasn't really a life I was looking forward to. It wasn't until I was 32 years of age that I actually saw a sliver of light at the end of that tunnel. Sometime near the start of 2020, I came across a video by a man called Tony Robbins, of whom I had never heard of up until then. For those unfamiliar with him, Tony Robbins is a well-known businessman and wellness coach that's been operating for more than 4 decades now, and is quite famous for his kindness, generosity, and unquestionable belief in the power of the human mind to change lives. This is by no means a promotional piece on Mr. Robbins, mind you, but rather me being remiss if I didn't mention him, given the fact that it was because of that man that I was introduced to the concept of self-improvement. Believe it or not, up to that point in time I had never actually considered the possibility of people having the ability to change in any meaningful capacity. I simply figured that we all did our best with whatever hand life had dealt us, with deviations from our established self being minor to the point of insignificance. Following my viewing of some of Tony's videos, I realized there was a whole wealth of information out there about how to better our mental state that I was unaware of, a world of infinite possibilities for meaningful change. For someone like me, who had spent the last 14 years struggling with my fragmented mental state, that was the first time in a long time that I actually felt hopeful that there was maybe a way for me to not constantly give it my all just to manage the bare minimum of not wallowing in depression, but a way to completely turn my mindset around by accepting those emotions and moving on from them. I spent a lot of time reading books and watching videos on the subject of self-improvement, researching everything I could get my hands on and practicing the things that appeared the most effective to me, and through that pilgrimage, I was finally able to settle on a few things that ended up being significantly effective for improving my mental health, to the point where I wasn't just able to move on from my trauma, but to actually see a compelling future for myself, a future where I wasn't just wading through life, but creating it for me. It is my educated guess that many of you are probably struggling with depression and misery in a way similar to me back then, so I considered it a good idea to share with you the 5 things that actually helped me turn my life around, in the hopes that that they can do the same for you. Do keep in mind that these aren't quick fixes, and perhaps not all of them will work for you, but I would definitely recommend giving them a chance, since I sincerely believe there's some value to be gained here if you practice them consistently. With that being said, let's talk about them. The first thing I quickly came to understand from my journey was that words have power. When words are put together, they form sentences, and sentences form paragraphs, which in turn form stories. These stories are not only relevant to books, but also yourself. If you really think about it, you have certain narratives you believe to be true about yourself. Things like, I'm not good enough to be loved, or I'll never manage to achieve my goals, or I'm a procrastinator and always will be. The reason why I use negative examples here is that this tends to be the norm when talking to ourselves about ourselves, and the more we do that, the more our self believes it to be true and acts on it as if it is law, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The good thing is that, while negative self-talk is quite effective in bringing us down, so is positive self-talk in elevating us. Instead of saying I'm not good enough to be loved, try saying I deserve love and affection. Do that daily for a few minutes, and you'll start noticing that your mindset will begin to shift from one of self-deprecation to one of self-love. Change the stories you tell yourself about yourself, and you will change the way you think about yourself, which in turn will change your life. You deserve more than you think you do, and it is up to you to open the doors of your mind and let it all in. I'll admit I still struggle a bit with not bringing myself down at times, but I have achieved leaps and bounds when it comes to changing my personal narrative to one where I see myself as a worthy person deserving of happiness and success, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. This leads me to the second element of this equation, which is gratitude. As people, we tend to largely focus on the negative aspects of our life. The co-worker that said something bad about you behind your back, the minor disagreement you had with your partner, the long line at the grocery store. If it is negative, it tends to have a significant impact on us, which does make sense since our brain has evolved over thousands of years to protect us from danger, meaning that it tries to detect the bad things by default. That being said, it is very important for us to remember that, while everything that is wrong will always be around us, so will everything that is right. For example, while the line at the grocery store is long, you are there because you have the money to afford some food when others don't. You're also standing on your own two legs while someone else might not have that privilege. Your heart is still beating, giving you life for another day and granting you another chance to bring things around. That is to say, there are things in your life to be grateful about if you truly look for them, a process which can also become a brief daily ritual for you. The way I do it is, every morning, shortly after I wake up, I spend 10 minutes thinking of a few things I'm incredibly grateful for and allow said gratitude to inundate me and set the tone for my day ahead. I'll admit that when I first started doing this, it felt a bit odd since I couldn't really sync myself with my feelings of gratitude due to the fact I had been very much conditioned to worry and stress being my default modes of thinking, but after a bit of practice, I was able to truly feel the warmth that came with the realization that there are things in your life you can feel blessed for, a realization that can subsequently give you the strength you need to pursue the goals of the day. Take those 10 minutes every morning and give it a shot. You might be pleasantly surprised with the results. Now, as great as it is to do your best in order to condition your mind so that it can temper the negative thoughts and mentally focus on the positive aspects of life, I've discovered that putting pen to paper can do wonders for that process in ways that thinking can't. Journaling has been a part of the human experience for the longest time, and having engaged in it myself, I can safely say that it brings immense mental relief when done frequently. After waking up each morning, our thoughts tend to be a jumbled mess which, in combination with the human predisposition of focusing on the negative side of things, can lead to a less than stellar start in our day as we set off by worrying about things that await us in the near or far future. That being said, writing those thoughts down soon after you get up from bed can put a lot of things in perspective. For one, transferring your worries, concerns, or even desires and hopes on a page functions like a dumping ground which relieves your mind of them, thus allowing you to think clearly and focus on what matters most to you without the blurry goggles of concern confusing you. It is also quite interesting to revisit your journal entries from time to time and see how your thought process has changed over time, which can give you some interesting insights on your own progress as a human being. This is not something you need to do daily, not unless you really want it. Even doing it once per week can have incredibly beneficial effects on your state of mind. Speaking from experience, I highly recommend trying this out. It may be just what you need to gain some much needed clarity. Speaking about clarity, one of the most well-known ways of gaining it is through the ancient practice of mindfulness, also known as meditation. Our mind has a tendency to be in a constant state of chattering as we keep getting flooded by countless, often chaotic, thoughts of things that have happened in the past, things that are happening in the present, and things that we expect to happen in the future. This intense mental state can be quite exhausting and often leads to us being distracted for most of the day, thus not allowing us to be fully present for things that truly matter. It's also quite frustrating and can frequently result in feelings of anger and injustice, especially when we dwell on the negative things that have happened to us, or even worse, negative things we expect to happen to us in the future, which essentially means we are worrying about something that may never come to pass. Meditation is a great way to gradually quiet the chattering mind by learning how to bring our body to a relaxed state, which, on a basic level, mainly happens through certain breathing exercises, as well as exercises meant to keep you anchored in the present instead of allowing your consciousness to wander. Eventually, you'll also become capable of observing your thoughts objectively without allowing them to influence you, which is incredibly helpful when said thoughts are negative. There are countless free videos you can watch on how to begin your meditative journey, as well as several free applications you can utilize, the latter of which has been my way of engaging with this practice. Meditation has helped me quite a bit when it comes to keeping my mind calm during stressful situations, as well as not rushing to conclusions before I have all the facts, and has led to a more structured way of thinking during my daily life, which, in turn, has improved my approach to planning for the future. I'll admit meditation is not for everyone in its entirety, but I strongly believe that some of its fundamental practices can be of immense assistance to the vast majority of people that will choose to engage with it. There's nothing for you to lose by trying this one out. After all, it is freely available. On to the final practice I apply to my daily life. There's a Latin saying that goes mens sana in corpore sano, which roughly translates to a healthy mind resides within a healthy body. As wonderful as it is to train our mind so as to improve our mental health, we'll never be fully focused unless we also make sure to take care of our body, which is why physical exercise is such an important aspect of the human experience. Taking the time to work out on a frequent basis can do marvels for your state of mind, since physical training not only enforces mental focus, given that you need to be present in the moment in order to carry out said training, but consistent physical exertion also conditions your mind to not be afraid to engage with difficult or uncomfortable situations, including doing things that you don't want to do but know you need to do. By encouraging yourself to work out, which tends to be a somewhat tiresome and exhausting experience, you prove to yourself that you can actually carry out difficult tasks, which then leads to a winning mentality that makes you more prone to tackle challenges that may be related to certain goals you may have. For example, if you managed to carry out your daily training session, you're probably also going to be able to start work on the first chapter of the book you always wanted to write, or the painting that's been sitting vividly in your head. Do allow me to clarify that physical exercise will be different for everyone, depending on each person's age and physical health, which is why the assistance of a health expert is highly recommended, at least at the beginning, so that you can learn about your limits in a safe environment if you've had no previous experience in the field. That being said, physical exercise doesn't have to be something complicated, and can also mean just taking the time to walk or run for 20 minutes a day if able, as well as carrying out a few basic movements at home depending on your body's capabilities. I personally try to do a minimum of 3 days per week, with my sessions ranging between 30 to 45 minutes, and I use a free free exercise application that keeps me accountable and also monitors my progress, which helps me to stay motivated. If you can find a friend with whom to do this, it's even better for accountability since you each encourage the other to carry on, though I personally approach this alone. Before I end this journal entry, I wish to leave you with some important parting words. No matter what is happening in your life right now, I want you to remember that you, me, and everyone else around you are human. That means we are imperfect creatures by nature, prone to our own virtues and vices, so do cut yourself some slack and allow yourself to fail at times, because it is through failure that we learn what works and what doesn't. You should not demand perfection from yourself, and you should never compare yourself to others. Instead, you should strive for progress and always aim to be better not from the person next to you, but from the person you were yesterday. Your only true opponent in this life is you, and whether you will allow your moments of weakness, which we all have, to dictate the rest of your life is entirely in your hands. I, for one, believe in you. You have much to give to this world, and I cannot wait to witness it.